back to our 35 bounce strategy, and we are going to start optimizing this now. You can see we have a win rate of 61.54% on 91 trades. I know previously it was 92, but I did find one rogue trade. So it is a good reminder to go back and double check all of your data input at the end of your backtesting. When optimizing any strategy, there's a few general things I start with. And they have to do with what's happening on the entry candles, what's happening with price action during the trade, and what the indicator is saying when I'm entering the trade. So if we go to our strategy outline, we can see at the bottom here under factors for optimization, there's a few things listed down. So the first point being test different stop losses. In order to test stop losses, I'm going to need to know some info about the entry candle, perhaps the previous one, and what's happening with price action during the trade. I'm also going to need to know the ATR, since we're actually basing our stop loss on the ATR. Additionally, I'm going to need to gather some RSI values because I want to see if the way price is moving correlates with where the RSI sits. To ensure this doesn't get overwhelming, let's just start with testing the different stop losses and testing the RSI value correlation. So the first thing I need to do is set up my backtesting template to be able to accept all these figures. So in order to set up our spreadsheet ready to go for all this extra information, we need to add a few more columns. So I currently have ATR, RSI, entry reason, and direction. I'm going to add a few more because I want to collect extra pieces of info. Okay, so I'm going to use RSI and I'm going to right click on there and insert one column left. So with this, I'm going to use Prev RSI for taking the second candle RSI value, and then RSI is going to be my third candle or entry candle value. I'm also going to want to grab the swing levels of the second and third candles. So if I hold both of these, insert two columns, let's say Prev candle and entry candle. Okay, Prev, I'm going to move this over to be after the RSI. I'm going to have direction, entry reason. There's one other thing I want to grab as well. So we have our stop loss set, we enter our trade, and currently we're not getting any information about what's happening during that trade, apart from it's a win or a lose. So I want to know how close price is getting to my stop loss during that time. Do I have enough of a buffer? Do I have too much? So how can I optimize it in a way knowing that I'm getting the best stop loss without stopping out the trade too early? So I'm going to add one more column and I'm going to call this one swing. This is all going to make a lot more sense as soon as we dive into the chart and start collecting the info. So to start collecting this data, let's go back to the 3rd of January 2018. So 3rd of January 2018, we can see our first one was at 10 p.m. So this here is our trade. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ATR, and using the down arrow here, I'm going to actually push it down right to the bottom. So I've got my RSI, my ATR, make it a little bit bigger. And so now I can flick windows and go back to my backtesting. I'm going to make this window a little bit smaller so I'm able to see these values in order to put them in nice and efficiently. Okay, so I'm going to use my trade tool. This is our first trade here. I'm going to log down the swing low of the second candle, 31.9. I'm going to do the same with the entry candle, 24.3. Don't worry that they aren't quite correct just yet. We'll work on one whole line and then get all our decimal points correctly. So previous RSI on that one, if we hover over it, we can see our RSI down here. So RSI 43.91, 43.91. And then on our entry candle, we have 55.96. And then we're grabbing our ATR as well, 209. We are finding the swing that is within that trade. So I only generally take the swing until the kind of 1-to-1 value. I know that's the minimum trade I want to take. And so what was our stop loss? 52.8. So I say 528, 528. So I've set up the trade again. Within that 1-to-1, there is very little swing. But what I do is I move the stop loss up and get it to snap to the swing low. So in this one, it is only 1. So we have 1, we are going long, and our entry reason. So our entry reasons can be found on our settings page. If I go here, we don't really have varying entries for this strategy, but there's one thing I want to log. It's whether the cross of the 35 is just the wick of a candle or if it's the body. So if I say 35 body and 35 wick, that means back on data input, If I click on entry reason, it's going to suggest those two options. So if I look in here, we can see that although that's just sitting on it, the push of this candle has actually brought it through the 35. So while that one's a little bit ambiguous, I would call that a body candle. So if I put B in there, it's going to come up with 35 body. Perfect. So we want a little bit more detail on our candle values. As you can see, I had put in, I believe it was 31.9, but it's coming up as 32. It's rounding it. So all I need to do is click on the increase decimal places, and that's going to give us what we need. Same with the RSI. That one should be 2 decimal places. That one is. ATR needs none. Swing, once again, because that's pips, should have 1 decimal place. And we're looking good. Okay. You can see how going back and recreating the trade and getting all this extra info now can be quite a time-consuming process. It's a lot more efficient to do it as you're initially backtesting, but for this example, I wanted to break it into easy to understand sections. This is the kind of info I actually take while in my initial backtesting. And while it takes a lot longer to go through the backtesting, it does give me a lot more flexibility and allows me to optimize as soon as I've collected my results. So let's move on to our next trade, which is the 9th of January at 6 p.m. So if I find this trade here, 9th of January, 6 p.m., find the open of that candle. Remember with the red, the open is at the top of the body. Let's click on there to put our trade in there again, and we'll drag around our stop loss to get this value for each of these. So we see second candle has a swing low of 3.2, and our third candle has 23.4. So if I go 3.2 and 23.4, I hover over the previous candle to get that RSI, which is exactly 52. And then the new RSI of the third candle, 52.94 and 208. Our swing low in this. So we can see price moved up pretty quickly again. The swing low here will be this first candle, which got down to 8.2. We are once again going long, and that is a wick entry. Skipping ahead now to do a short trade, we have a one here on the 12th at 2 a.m., 12th of February. So I'm going to use the short position tool, this one here, which shows it upside down, the red at the top, which is perfect. So I grab my stop loss, and if I hover over that, I'll measure these first. That'll be a 32.9 on the second candle and a 25.4. So 32.9 and 25.4, I believe it was. Always good to double check. 25.4. My previous RSI, which I can see down below now that I've got my cursor over the second candle, 53.91. And then I move it across to this one, and we get 46.97 and 310. So in terms of grabbing the swing area of a losing trade, I'll set the max win, set the trade to be as long as that, and then actually grab the swing from within there. So that'll be 7.2. There's no point me grabbing the swing from here because that's where the trade would have been stopped out, or up here, and it's also beyond the bounds of this max win. So I'll shorten the trade to be within the max win and then find the swing within there. 7.2, 7.2. This is actually a short trade, and the entry reason that I would consider a wick. At the point of that 35 is still on the wick there. So I'll put a W there, hit enter, and it enters wick. Okay, so here's a trade that we've got to enter on the 17th at 10 p.m. Let's go and figure out the previous candle, which is 48.7 and then 35.8. 48.7, 35.8. Yes. Okay, and so this one, previous RSI is 49.38. The RSI is 57.86. The ATR on that one is also 312. Swing. Okay, so this is the first one where we've really had to deal with a swing. So if I set my trade 79.9, so if I go 799 here and 799, we can see now that the swing low is in here. So instead of it being in these first couple of candles, it's the swing low of the area within the 1-to-1 ratio. So when the trade is here, the swing low within this is here. There's no point me setting the swing low to be at this candle because the trade is already over. So here we have a swing of 26.2. 26.2, that is long, and that is a wick entry. Okay, so our trade on the 25th of January at 6 p.m., we have 27.1 and 49.5, 27.1, 49.5, Our previous RSI, so we hover over there, is 44.35. Our RSI on the entry candle is 48.42. We have an ATR of 391, and we have our swing. So this is where we set our trade again, which would be 88.6. So 88.6, 88.6. And this is an interesting one because you can see we have a loss over here. So what I'm going to do is in the area before the loss, I'm going to choose the lowest point before there. So that would be 84. 84, it's long, and the reason for entry was at the body. So if I put in B, then we have the entry there. Okay, I'm going to finish collecting all of this, then we can go through and analyze it all.